Hello, welcome to the Mark Attwood Show, Adventures in a Cosmic Suit. Quick message before you watch today's video. If you want to keep up with me, there's a Linktree link below the video. I've already had one YouTube channel taken down, so keep up with me on email. As any of you who watch this channel know, I am always interested in health and how we preserve our longevity, how we improve our immune systems. And during that journey, I came across a very interesting man called Ian Clark, who I'm going to introduce you to now. Hello, Ian.
Hey, Mark. How's it going?
Really good, thank you. You're one of those people you can't forget the face once you've seen it. and I can't remember how I came across you first. I think it was an advert from your company, Activation, and it was what caught my eye was the black cumin oil, because I'd been researching it, and then I found you, and then I found your story, and I was like, this is a guy I'd like to talk to, which is why we're here.
Right. Cool.
So just people watching, well, I saw about Ian's story. Tell me if I'm wrong, but you were in your 40s, you weren't in very good shape, but then you became in very good shape because you learned a few things. How did that actually happen with you? How bad were you? What were you doing at the time? And how did you come to learn stuff about oils in particular?
Well, yeah, I hit the wall when I was 46. So that's like, I'm 63 in about 2 weeks from now. And so fortunately right now, I got the biological age of about a 25-year-old as far as health-wise. So back then it was like a biological age of an 80-year-old, because I had a whole bunch of things running in the background that I didn't realize. And 3 things hit me that were life-threatening, between liver, colon cancer, and heart disease. Those are the 3 big ones. That's what I was diagnosed with at any rate. And I was very sick, and I was way overweight. The weight was not the problem. That was the least of my concerns at the time. What I didn't know is what was causing it all. And so as these things were erupting and doctors were starting to get more and more intense with the instructions on what they had to do to fix these problems, the more I got concerned about the types of surgery they were offering. And my oldest brother was a medical doctor for 30 years. So I was always sounding things off of him whenever something weird would happen in my life, which wasn't too often. But at that time, it was just all at once. And his premise was, look, you better pay attention. You just go get this stuff done. You know, you've got a genetic predisposition to having this happen. You look just like Uncle Don, which is on my mom's side. So my Uncle Don and my Uncle Bob both died in 1978, 2 days apart, one in the other one's funeral, both of cancer. One was 51 and one was 54. I was 20 years old when that happened. And I remember it very clearly. I mean, that was a pretty big shock to our family. My mom, who has just turned 99 last Friday and doing fantastic, great health, great clear mind. Her mom lived till 103, but here are her 2 brothers dead at 70 in 1978 at these young ages. Both of cancer, both of like terminal cancers. So I had all these things, same symptoms, same situation, only I was even younger. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. So it's genetic predisposition. So my brother said, yeah, I've had thousands of patients come through my clinics over the years. You know, he had 11 doctors working for his clinic with him. And he was a general practitioner. So he saw all walks of life, of all different, he said, every age, every group, doesn't matter. You know, they can eat organic, they can juice, they can eat out of the dumpster, party their face off. It doesn't matter. They're either going to live till they're old or not. And I'm like, really? So it's nothing that I'm doing. He goes, absolutely nothing you're doing. And I wasn't doing anything different than really mainstream. I didn't drink or smoke or do drugs or anything since I was 21. And I lived a fairly normal lifestyle, except for I was eating whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, however I wanted. I wasn't watching my sleep patterns. I wasn't watching my stress levels. What I didn't know is that I was full of lead, mercury, cadmium. I had a ton of fungal infections. I had a whole bunch of really heavy duty bacterial stuff going on. I had yeast overgrowth. So I didn't know any of that stuff. And the doctors didn't know. All they were calling it is cancer, heart disease, which is typical. And I for whatever reason, I didn't have a fear of those things at the time, because I didn't agree with the way that they were determining this stuff. And I asked my brother, you know, I didn't even know the term root cause at the time, but I was kind of asking that type of question. Like, why do I have this? And they would always just refer to statistics, which was all that they could do. And I thought, it's got to be me. Somehow it's got to be me. I didn't want to have to say that. I wanted to blame everybody else at the time because I was so toxic. But when I mentioned that to my brother, I said, you know, I think it might be what I'm doing. He goes, no. He said, don't blame yourself. That's going to cause it to get worse. And I said, well, okay. Well, fast forward. As it turned out, it was everything I was doing. I wasn't managing sleep. I wasn't managing stress. I didn't know about detox. I didn't have any clue about organic or GMO or glyphosate. I knew none of that stuff.
Mm.
As a result of my ignorance in those areas, I was dying because my body can't hack that kind of thing. I just don't have the metabolism for it, apparently. And also, I worked in the oil field for 17 years. So that exposure is, I don't know if you know anything about oil field rigs, but when you're in the field, you're exposed to lead. Lead pipe dope is on every connection everywhere, and they don't ever tell you about it. It was on our sandwiches, on our clothes. It was soaking into our skin. It was everywhere. Yeah. You know, it was like nuts. And plus, I lived in houses with, you know, mildew, and I didn't know what that was. So anyway, learned all that stuff, found out, I've got to take responsibility for this. It is my responsibility. I was super inspired. Like, I would wake up in the mornings, because when you're that desperate and you're that messed up, you know, you do everything from prayer to meditation to seeking and searching. And I made the decision that I would do whatever it took, if I was shown, if I could be led to the right information, to the right people in enough time, I would listen and I would take actions. And it didn't matter what it cost, money, time, or energy. It didn't matter if I had to suffer or if I had to have a whole bunch of fun. I was wide open to it. And it was quite a ride. It was this really intense ride for 5 years, because I had with the trajectory I was on then, thinking back and what the doctors were telling me then, you know, their prognosis was about 3 years. If I didn't do it, they say it was like a year. And I was like, yeah, it doesn't matter. You give me 3 years, that means I got 3 years to live, not 3 years to die. Then I got to extend that to 5 years, 10 years, and so on. Today, with the current trajectory pending, you know, huge disasters not happening, I have about 21,000 days, I think, left to live, somewhere in there, you know, under the current trajectory, knowing what we know now. So it feels to me like we're just getting to the starting point of doing the deepest level foundational resets to know exactly how to build on that. Because if you can build all you want, but if you don't have that deep foundation, you're still building on a structure that could potentially collapse in certain areas. And, you know, that's the short version of what happened.
No, it's great. And I connected with that story because I was running a business 12 years ago. I don't know if do you do stone in Canada? I don't know, but I was 18 stone. I was huge. And courses are going through the roof, stress levels through the roof. My wife at the time said there was a heart attack waiting to happen. I'd actually already been in hospital with a suspected heart attack.
Right.
And I relate to the way that you say that you got up excited every morning, because I used to get up. Well, it was actually when I saw a friend of mine who'd lost loads of weight and had gone from being quite big to being a marathon runner. And I'd not seen him for about 6 months, and I was shocked when I saw him. And I said, how did you do that? And he said that he'd been on a fasting retreat. And I was like, what? I literally never come across this idea, right?
Right.
And I ended up driving down to this farm in Devon in the south of England. And it was ironically called Ham Farm. It's a great name for a fasting retreat.
For sure.
And I didn't eat for a week. And while I was there, I just read loads, because there was no smoking, no drinking, no eating. I was awake all night and all day. And after day 3, I was running around like a kid. And wow. I couldn't believe how much energy I'd got. Even though I was so huge. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. I've not eaten anything. So I got brought up playing football and all of that. And it would be like, have a big breakfast, lads, because you're going out, you know, you're going to play a game. There was all that kind of stuff. And I was really, really fit when I was young, but I was in a really, really bad way. And for me, I read, I can't remember his name now, Juicing Therapy by Dr. Bernard Jensen.
Oh, yeah. Bernard, yeah.
And what I loved about him is that he ended up, he was curing people 100 years ago plus with juices.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote it all down, and he had a sensor, and he did this and that, and he ended up dying, falling off his surfboard at the age of 98 and banging his head on a rock.
Man.
And I thought, what? And I come from a line of people. You know, my granddad died last year during the lockdown. Unfortunately, I didn't see him, but he was 91, and the only reason he died is because he got fed up of being locked up, and he just gave up. But you know, his parents were quite old. But then, you know, in the last 10 years, my auntie died at 51. My other auntie died at 58. Cancer. And all of that. I just took delivery of a Rife machine today. I'm very excited because it's.
Cool. Which one did you get?
I got a Spooky.
Right. Yeah, good.
Because I watched those guys start to build it like 15 years ago, and now I've actually bought one, and I'm very excited about that. So I related to that. I mean, I'm still a sinner. I'm still not perfect. I do I consume CBD every day. I do a lot of oil things, although. The reason I came to your company is because it looked like there was two things. There was the amazing black cumin oil that I'm waiting to be delivered because I'm in Ireland. It takes a bit longer than usual during this time.
Right.
But the other one I was really fascinated by was that process that you took on board of with the marine. I can't remember the name of it.
Ocean's Alive.
Yeah, that Ocean. Yeah, that I can't wait to take that.
Yes.
Because everything you said in the video about that is completely logical, but also you're the proof of the pudding. Okay. No, just before this call, I was desperately trying to find a picture of me really, really fat because you know I've been talking about health stuff on this channel for quite a while, and some people say, "Well, you still haven't given up smoking." Oh no, I haven't given up smoking. That's pretty tough. But if I showed you a picture of me 12 years ago, you'd be going, "Oh, you're doing pretty well, actually." So yeah, that excitement of when you start, a few fundamental things start dawning on you. Like you mentioned briefly, cancer is described, you know, it's really a fungus, right? And when I first discovered that, and the Italian doctor who was put in prison about 7 times because he was injecting people with bicarbonate soda and curing them.
Yes.
And then you've got Rife, who was curing people of cancer 100 years ago with frequencies.
Yeah.
You know, once you start, so that's why I'm interested in expanding into your story, because I think you're you've ended up setting up a business and you're helping people all over the world with your products now. That is the kind of thing that turns me on every level, because going forward, especially in the middle of what we're in at the moment, people are having to become more sovereign, which is what you did. You found your health sovereignty.
Right.
And that is an amazingly empowering thing, isn't it?
It is. It's freeing. It's like freedom from a lot of different bondages. You know, because the mental bondage, our mental immune system is the most important part of us to make sure that we can filter out all the BS that's coming at us from wherever it comes at us.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of angles of that. And then emotional immunity, you know, the fear factor. Are you able to be scared? You should never be able to be scared. The fear should not be there, except for fear of falling off a cliff if you're walking through the mountains. That kind of healthy fear is cool. But being scared of things that are the unknown, there should not be, because of as much as your mind is flooded with truth about everything, the more you're set free from all that fear factor. And fear hormones are deadly. Wow. They're like the deadliest thing out there for nocebo, right? Which is the opposite of placebo. You know, the nocebo effect, I think, is probably 10x more powerful than placebo. Placebo is really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the nocebo has a much more devastating effect. And people, you know, you tell somebody something and they believe a lie, they die.
Well, I think we're seeing that right now. It's incredible.
Yes, everywhere. Yeah. Well, this has been going on for a long time. In your my life, we've been basically subjected to a lot of misinformation for a very long time. And now it's sort of hitting a tsunami level effect where you get a groundswell of the biggest fabrications of all. And then, but yet, the bigger the lie, the more people believe it. I guess.
Was it Goebbels or Hitler said that in one of their books?
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. The bigger the lie, the more people believe it. But so you went on your journey. How did you just leave it to chance? You're not the kind of person left it to chance. You went seeking the information. So where did you start? Where did you start? Was it with the food and weights, or was it with internal, spiritual? What, you know, which area did you start in, and what had the biggest transformation for you?
Mm-hmm. Well, that was one of the biggest dilemmas I had. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know quite where I was even at. I just knew I was in a very, very bad place. And I knew that you could have given me $10 trillion. I would have never found the right stuff at that time. So I had to be led, inspired, synchronicities, watching for signs, listening, paying attention. And it didn't happen overnight. It was kind of like this slow move. And I knew I was on a timeline. But what I personally believed is that I could find the stuff within the right amount of time to be able to stay ahead of the curve. Because I've been so far behind the curve without knowing it, that when the fire is burning that hot, what I found out is that, you know, it's like a farmer. You plant seeds, you're going to get harvest. Whatever you planted for, you're going to have a harvest, whether you like it or not. And you have to harvest that thing. So I was getting this super ugly harvest happening, and there was no way that I could get out of it. I had to reap all that junk. At the same time, I had to make sure I'm not continuing to plant those same seeds. Then at the same time, you got to plant good seeds, because that might take 6 months to 5 years to show up.
Yeah.
You know, so this is slow motion thing. And it was just one thing methodically after the next. But there was one thing that kind of caught my attention way back when I was in grade 1. And this will seem weird to people, but it actually happened. I was in the class of about 31 people. This was in 1965. So I was 7 years old. I guess I'd be 6 in grade 1. So 1964. And we had this little Japanese teacher. I can't remember her name. She stood about 4'8". And I was in the middle of the classroom, and she was talking about statistics that day. And she was talking about, she gave us an example. She said, now in this classroom with 31 people, there will be like one person will die in their 30s. Certain number will die in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and so on. And that one person in the room would live till 100. And that's just based on the current statistics at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first, it was so intriguing to me. And I didn't think anything of what she was saying as far as related to me. But the kid next to me named Kim, this little, I don't know what he had the name Kim for, but Marty, I'm sorry. I always get that mixed up. His name was Marty. Marty looked at me and goes, "You're the one that's going to live till 100. And so I looked at him like that, right? And then the girl to the right of me, I don't remember her name, but she said, "You're right. You're the one that's going to live till 100. And so that was a weird thing. And I just thought, that's kind of weird. Maybe that's true. Who knows? And then it turns out my grandmother lived till 100, and now my mom's 99, you know, and started her 100th year last Friday. So there's something with that. And I kind of had this feel that I don't think I'm going to be dying. I think I'm actually going to find the right things. And if I would just be open, I could be led, because I couldn't find them. How do you find a needle in a haystack like that? You know, that we're talking about the top level knowledge of natural living, the top level knowledge of natural remediation, because I'd have a lot of remediation. And I did. It was all these people who I got to meet along the way. And it was kind of like stepping stones where I was allowed to meet the next person when my mind was ready enough, because I was such a know-it-all before this.
That I relate to, because when I got back from the fast, I was a nightmare. I'd be pointing at people's plates, go, "That's poison! That's poison! Stop eating it!" Everybody hated being around me. I was healthier, but I'd lost all my friends.
That's right. Yeah. So I had to go through a whole like spiritual, mental, emotional, and then physical detox. And what I realized is I was actually suicidal without even knowing it, because the way I was treating my body was going to cause it to die. And that's our only interface to the land of the living. So I was like, dude, what's up? Right? What are you doing? You have 7 children to raise. You've got, our youngest was still young. We had 5 boys and 2 girls, trying to have a couple of girls, which is great. It turned out fantastic. And they all got involved in the business with me as well. So they all became very enthusiastic with this new adventure we were on, changing our lifestyle, eating only organic, getting into juicing, doing all the stuff that we did that was fun. And then just seeing me go from a very overweight, very unhealthy looking, miserable type person to becoming super skinny and then rebuilding. I lost like 90 pounds. I was down at 130. And on my frame, which is small anyway, I have a small frame, but I'm 5'10" and a half. my proper weight is 155, 160, and I was up at 220. So that's quite a bit of weight in my frame. To see all these transitions happen and have everybody come up to support. My wife was the last one to support, but she's an amazing woman. And she was raised on a farm, has never been sick. She's always been like super healthy. Her parents were not wealthy, so it was like organic by default.
Yeah.
And so she has this super strong constitution. She actually runs our farm now, and she runs it very, very well. It's quite an operation. But just kind of coming through all those transitions and then going through these huge, deep detoxes where you don't know what you're doing. Sometimes you make mistakes and you have way more detox than you want at the time. I was through a bunch of those, and then coming up and realizing, well, okay, we got to really rebuild this whole thing. It took first 5 years, got rid of all of the symptoms, and that's all they were symptoms. It was just symptoms of having heavy metal poisoning, huge fungal overgrowth, lots of bacterial infections, lots of estrogens from plastics. All the chemical sensitivity crap that was going on because I was exposed to so much, and then going to a full medical range diagnosis of normalcy, which is extremely boring. I was really happy with that to start with. And then, because, you got to measure to manage. And then I realized then in 2009, which is 12 years ago, that you could then become incredibly healthy. The older you get, the healthier you get, the faster you get, the stronger you get, the wiser, not the sicker, the weaker, the more broken. That's only the paradigm if you have the wrong thinking. So once I realized it was really a mind game, because the mind is going to have the greatest amount of ability to keep your enthusiasm up, regardless of circumstance. You're always taking the step up and forward rather than down and out of here. Then I thought, oh, well, you could actually live to 120 fairly successfully. But you do have to know what you're doing. You've got to make sure you're covering the bases that are most important. And brain function is a huge one. How much amyloid plaque is building up in people. Well, those are the things that take you out.
Well, can I interrupt you? Because there's a couple of questions come up. Firstly, I know that people watching this will be going, well, where'd you go? How do you find out? How do you know how much plaque is in your brain? How do you know whether you got any fungus? Doctors don't know. I mean, well, as you were saying that story, two other things popped up. When the lockdown started last year, I went for a checkup. Mm-hmm. I was going, yeah, everything's normal, blood pressure's not. I was going, you sure it's the right guy? So I started drinking a lot of wine when the lockdown started. It was going, no, you're fine. I was like, that's the normal C, because I put a lot of work in over the years as well. And I blip up and down. That's the honest truth. And I try to take care of the foundations as much as possible. But I'm not perfect, and this is why you inspired me. Also, I wanted to ask you if you'd heard of the Hunza. Have you ever read the book about the Hunza?
Yes, yeah, for sure.
The tribe in
all the blue tones, and these people live a long time.
Yeah, anybody watching this should go and find. There's a great book written. I'm looking at my bookshelf, but I know it's not there. About the Hunza. I think it was written in the 50s, maybe a bit earlier. An American guy went to find this tribe, and they all lived to 120. Their own teeth and hair, and they were very healthy and very happy. And people couldn't understand how that was possible. But when we understand that we are poisoned beyond belief, just in normal society in the last couple of 100 years at least, then It all makes sense. But how do people find out what level of toxicity they've got? Are there ways of doing that you'd recommend?
Well, there are many, many tests. There's doctors' data tests. There's different fungal checks you can do. You can do your blood panels. You can do live blood cell. There's a lot of different diagnosing things. What I don't like about them is that if you go before you've done the clearly defined functional foundational work, you're going to find a whole bunch of stuff. You're going to find all the things that are not happy to hear about, and you're going to get diagnosed, and you're going to get all these prescriptions, from naturopaths, whoever. And I love naturopaths, but I love naturopaths after you've done all the work, and then you go see them. Then you'll find maybe a few lingering things, because everyone wants to be a hero in the background. It's not that we would ever admit that, but the hero thing is kind of there. Oh, I can help to save you. Well, no, it's all about you finding out your information, making intelligent decisions. You've got the right data, and you're taking the steps instead of going and getting tested. Do all the clear things that you have to do. Every single person has been subjected to mold contamination through the air somewhere. If you've hit enough CFM, you've got a colony in your body for sure. Everybody's been subjected to heavy metals. We've all been breathing rubber dust. There's 10 billion pounds of rubber dust, nanoparticles released into the air, mile and a half above every highway. It's over every field, everywhere. That rubber dust has cadmium, mercury, lead, like metals, epoxies, rubbers, plastics, estrogens. It's all in there. That's just one thing that's in the air. Yep. Right. So these are the things that we know are there. Getting into the protocols to just deal with it, do all the correct stuff up front, get the stuff out of your system, clear the pathways. So the detox is simple. Going into these really crazy detoxes like I went to, where I thought I was going to die a couple of times, is not a good idea. No.
So you don't need to get the frog.
Yeah, right. The combo.
Yeah.
Well, you can, I know all kinds of people who've gone to the jungles and done all the purge stuff.
Yeah.
They could be an apparent fast track. I don't think you can fast track this stuff because it becomes a lifestyle. If I were to count on a major detox retreat as my thing, that's like a Band-Aid or a shortcut segue. I know that every single day I'm alive, I'm cleansing and nourishing my body, and it's keeping clean. And so it's much more of a gentle approach. I don't have the authority to take my body into a jungle with a shaman and drink a tea and talk to these beings because I don't know who they are. So I don't have authority to do that. If I don't have authority to do something, I can't do it. I'm not against anybody doing whatever they feel right about because that's their life and they don't answer to me for what they do. But I have to answer to me for what I do. And I found out that I don't even own this body because none of us really own our bodies when you think about it, because they can be taken away. Everything else can't be taken away if you own it, but your body can. So therefore you don't own it. And your body is your connection to everything you've ever worked for or with. So losing the body is a very significant transition from your current state to where you are going to be, what state you're going to be in. So I just want to make sure that while I'm here for as long as possible without being arrogant about it, because any of us could get run over by a truck, which is very unlikely, especially if you're tuned in and you're going to be watching out for that kind of stuff a little bit more. But being on this earth and being highly functional so that all of our categories, whether it's, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, domestic, financial, environmental, all these categories we live in, we want to have them all synergized. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Yeah. So we find the weak links and we make sure we strengthen them so that they don't get broken, because one little thing can really topple the whole deal. But that comes down to information. Yeah. Your what you believe to be true is either going to keep you here for a long time or take you out. It's like there's no real neutral ground. You're either going in a progressive motion or a regressive motion. And the vast majority of society goes regressive. So when you're being progressive, you're in a different category. You kind of stick out like a bit of a sore thumb. And it's not that we want to, it's just that we have to. People say, well, are you going to do such and such or so and so? I go, well, it's not that I won't do that. I can't do that. And there's a big difference between can't and won't. If I say I won't do that, I might change my mind that I might do that. Or there might be a possibility. Or if I say there's no possibility I'll do that, well, that might change. But if I say I can't, because I simply can't, under any circumstances, it doesn't matter what's going on, I can't do those things. That protects me from that thing ever happening because I just simply can't do it. You could say, I'll give you $1 trillion, or you're going to be thrown off a cliff. What's that got to do with the conversation? If I can't, I can't. I mean, you can talk to me about anything you want. So that's a certain means of security, securing your being, securing your property. Your body is your property. It's not my property. If you ask me advice, I can give you advice, but I don't own your body. If I came up and stuck my finger in your ear, for example, and you said, don't do that. If I stick my finger in your ear again, that's considered rape because it actually went into your body. Same with injections, same with anything. So we have to learn, first of all, that we respect ourselves at a really high level. If I respect me, I have to respect you. And I got to know my boundaries with myself and with everybody else so that we stay within a zone of total dignity and respect for everyone around us. If I want dignity and respect for me, I've got to want the same thing for you. If I want the top level of information where I spend the least amount of time, energy, and money to get the maximum return on the health investment, for example, I should want that for you 100%. I shouldn't be like, oh no, this is good for me, but I'm not going to tell you because I wouldn't be able to make money off you if I tell you all the truth. And so it's the revealing of the actual definitive things to completely change the whole situation for everyone that we possibly can help in that regard. Because we're certainly not out to save anybody. If I was out to save somebody, what do I think? I'm a savior or something? I'm out to be a benefit to people, valuable. I want to be a real valuable asset to people, so they can see that and appreciate that, and then benefit from that. It's not to my gain; it's to their gain. So if we're here for everybody's gain around us, that's if we had a world that everyone was trying to be a gain to everybody else around them. That would be kind of cool. But we haven't seen that. But that's the microcosm we live in. That's the microcosm you live in. That's the microcosm I live in. And so we create that kind of a little universe for ourselves. And then those types of people are in that universe. That's
right. And you reminded me of Ubuntu, the African philosophy, as you were talking. If it's not good for everybody, it's no good at all. Have you seen Michael Tellinger's work by any chance?
No, I have not. I have not studied that work.
He set up an Ubuntu party in South Africa and tried to topple the government there about 10 years ago. He's an amazing guy. And he's done loads of work on the true history of the human race, which is even another one of my interests. But you talk a lot of wisdom and a lot of sense. And Ian's got a business called Activation Products, which I'll put a link below the video. In that business, I'm interested in how that develops, because obviously the whole family got involved and they saw these. What were you doing before? What is it, because you just consumed you and you thought, well, I've got to make this stuff because I can't get it anywhere? Is that what it was?
No, it didn't start like that. It started in a way that I didn't even realize it was starting until it started. Because when you almost die, when you're going to not be here anymore, something very weird happens inside the head. It was like this switch went off. And I was like, what doesn't really matter about anything anymore now when it comes to what was I supposed to do, or what are we supposed to act like? It's like, what's this government thing? What's this? You know what I mean? It was kind of weird, and I had to actually tone that way down, because I was almost like a maverick at that point, which is not cool, because then you could be irresponsible. But the first thing that came along as far as a product wise that I thought was extremely significant was something that no one had heard of before, which was marine phytoplankton. And at that time, it was in a powder form. It was being sold in a very watered down version in this multi-level marketing company, which I knew was just fruit juice. And I paid like $40 a bottle, and it had 37 milligrams in it. I was like, that's like really good. So I ended up looking online. I found a guy who had sourced some out of Europe. It was all brand new. This is like a 40-year study that had happened, and then another 10 years of development of the technology to grow this stuff on land in a photobioreactor, which is like this super high-tech stuff. And they're using heirloom strains. They've never been modified. It's always been like the original thing. And I found out that they have every nutritional molecule known to man in this algae, and that there were 2 strains that were perfectly suited for the human nutritional profile. But your brain is going to go, yep, know what that is, know what that is. And it's like this whole orchestra playing. So when I took it, I didn't understand the science behind it at the time. I just knew it was cool. And what it is it charged up my battery. So I was like, I've never had anything do this before, but it's like my battery got charged up. So I had this extra power. It wasn't like a coffee at all. But I just had this thing you could tap into when you needed it, like mentally. There was this mental joy, this physical thing. You could just feel it. So that was only after about 3 months.
This is like a natural nootropic.
It is, yeah. It's actually, we call it nature's nootropic.
Yeah, because I've been looking at nootropics for there's a lot of crap in a lot of those things. Mm-hmm. But I've experienced that feeling that you just described brilliantly. And I'm looking forward to receiving mine of yours, because that's a wonderful way of explaining it. And until somebody's experienced it, they won't really connect with that. But it is like, you realize how dim you've been and when that happens to you, don't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it sets the contrast. And so what I did is I got a hold of more of it. I took it to a farmer's market in Toronto. I showed some people there. We had put it in this little dropper bottle because we found out how to stabilize it without heating it or using any preservatives. It's stabilized in a sea mineral concentrate that was purified. So it's just like a fresh salad every time you take it, like as if you just picked it from the garden type of thing. And so I took it there, and it was selling for $59 a bottle for a 1 ounce bottle, 1 ounce bottle will last you a month. And that's a high price for 1 month normal. But people think $30 is okay. But because of the expense of the thing at the time, and now that it's changed because we got the volume sorted out, but I just was trying to sell a little bit of it. And everyone in Canada looked at it and goes, oh, what's that stuff? Pond scum, they had all these comments to say about it. They told me that would never sell, and that there's spirulina and chlorella already on the market, and there's nothing new about algae. So that turned me off with I couldn't believe it. Like, they would even try it. No, this stuff is like the thing, right? I took it down to California, and I showed some people at the Expo West in March of 2007. And as soon as they had it, within 15 minutes, they were coming back and saying, hey, that's cool. What is this stuff? This is really interesting. I can feel it. I go, well, I don't know if you really felt it or if it was a placebo, because I never got a real buzz off it right away. Some people did, though, for whatever reason, maybe because they were really depleted. But I just noticed it over time. And I said, well, if you think this is good now, just wait. And so then they said, well, where can we get it? And I said, well, I could get some. I didn't have any extra. I just had some. And but what I had an agreement with this guy in Europe, who, because I had shared some information I'd learned about with him that he thought was very valuable. He goes, if you do this, I'll protect you. If people try to call me, I won't sell it to them. I'll just tell them to go back to you. So then I went home, and then like $1,000 bottle order came in from this one guy. I was like, wow, okay. So we shipped over 4 totes, 20-liter totes from Europe on FedEx to our house in Brampton. We set up a clean room in the basement. We got some funnels. We got a printer for labels. We bought some bottles at the local consolidated place, and we started filling them in a really clean room. We didn't even have a company. No insurance, no nothing. And we took them down to them, and they put it into a bank account. They put all the money into a bank account in the States. And then I thought, okay, well, this is an interesting thing. I kind of got detoxed when it came to money. I realized that wasn't my money. You know how people think, oh, I made that money. It's mine. I can do whatever I want with it.
Yeah.
I woke up one morning and went, oh, that's not my money. Oh, I got to be careful with that money. Whose money is that? Well, that's the people's money who bought the product. They're investing in their health. They're entrusting the profit margin of that with us. And we're supposed to be careful with that. And we'll use that money to further the understanding of these things and to potentially even build a company around it eventually. So all that, I never took any of that money. We just put the money back in. And with our children, we had other things. They were making a little bit of money here and there. I actually never even made any personal money for quite a while, because when I was sick. But anyway, we got out of that thing, and we did 2.8 million in sales of retail product in the first 24 months. And that was just quietly done.
Wow.
And so then we had a resource to work with. We only got 1/3 of that because we were selling it for 1/3 the cost. But that was enough money that I said, okay, now we use that to fly around the world, to meet people, to buy products, to try things. It was like this filtering out process, because you have thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of health products, and everybody says they got the best stuff.
Yeah.
But what I realized is that, because I hit the top level in the algae world right out of the gate, fortunately, so that showed me something. Wow, there's something that's so far above everything else. It's like good, great, greater, and then greatest is way up here somewhere. And when you get up here, you spend the least amount of time, energy, and money, and you get this huge return in your investment, because you are investing those 3 things every time you're waking up every morning. And I thought, that is really cool. We're going to get this out to the people. And so that powered the first phase. Then within 2 years, we took it really seriously, and we set up a little tiny business out in the country in this little factory. And then we had a legitimate company. And then slowly, we then set up a really solid company in 2014. So this is like from in the 7th year. And then we got all the registration for, GMP, Health Canada. It took years more to get that. And then we finally got into the 70,000 square foot facility here, where we can produce significant amounts of retail product for all of our line. But that was just step by step. So that happened organically. It's like, okay, we were just kind of going as we went. And I knew that the money had to always go back into the business to serve people. And our lifestyle is actually it doesn't cost a lot with our lifestyle. We got our own farm. We're low key. It was just a matter of being able to go to places that I had to go to find the stuff. But then once you have it, you don't have to go any further. So this whole shutdown has been interesting for me, because I stopped traveling. I look back over the last 40 years from the different work that I did and the different businesses I tried, I was always traveling.
Yeah.
Either domestically or internationally.
Yeah.
Always in a suitcase, out of a suitcase.
Yeah.
And that's not actually cool. I was really bummed out with it when I watched all the airlines stop. I'm like, whoa, what's going on with this? And so, and then within 2 months, I was thinking, I don't think I'm going to travel anymore. I think I'm done. I'm happy. I'm happy to be home with my wife and kids. It's like, wow, this is super cool. And just getting regrounded where we can get a lot more work done and serve a lot more people without just all in it. Because I always thought you got to fly around to keep going. No, it comes to a place where it's matured and developed to the stage where now you just got to replicate. So the top level stuff is in. It doesn't mean that we have the end all be all, of course, but we have in our category definitely the top stuff in the whole world in our category. Mm-hmm. And that's our responsibility. So the other part is the information. The information is the most important. Protocols. How do you manage your body? How do you repair injuries? How do you make sure your body is not going to have a surprise heart attack, cancer diagnosis, stroke? Those things shouldn't even be in your conversation. And they don't have to be, provided you know what to do. And you should never, ever get an infection. I'm sitting in a situation right now where I cannot get an infection. I cannot infect anybody else. We have this, I ran into a guy who had spent 30 years developing an iodine product. It's called Perfect Iodine. Mm-hmm. And he figured out how to take a USB pharmaceutical grade iodine crystal, which is just pure iodine, I2, change it into a Dalton molecule, which is in a gas form, infuse it into distilled water, and that's all it is. There's no chemicals, there's no plastics, nothing. It is pure as pure can be. And when you put that in your system, either spray it on your skin or drink it or nebulize it, it just goes through your whole system and completely neutralizes anything that is not supposed to be in your body, including fungus.
Well, that's really interesting because I've been taking iodine for a few years, and that led me to chlorine. Oh, I can't mention it actually because it won't be able to go on YouTube. But there's a certain.
I know what you're talking about. The M.
Yeah, let's not say it because they'll take us off. Otherwise, we'll end up on BitChute. But I used that last year for my mother's arthritis. Mm-hmm. And it went. It's gone. It's been gone for a year.
Right.
And the bottles cost me
nothing.
£10.
So they'll last you a lifetime.
And I think what's really interesting about your story is that a lot of us are so busy with life, on the planes, working, setting up business, bringing up kids. I've got 5 kids myself. Your health literally goes. You just forget about it until it's too late. Either you drop dead, or you. And I think by the sounds of your story, the way that your philosophy, this is why there are no accidents or synchrony. Everything's exactly as it's meant to be, and the way that you're running. And I felt that energy from your videos, from your bit. I don't know what it was, but I just knew I had to speak to you. And do you spend much time helping people with the process? The reason I'm asking you is because when I mentioned this substance the other day on a non-censored channel, mm-hmm. Everybody went mad, was going, how do I get it? How do I get it? Where do I get it from? How do I use it? How do I use it? And there's so many questions when people do that. So it's a big responsibility then, because you have to say, you're going to have to do your own research, because I can't tell you. Mm-hmm. You've got to go and find this out for yourself. I'm just telling you what happened to me. And now it's up to you to go and find it. Because what I'm about is helping people to become more sovereign, to think for themselves, to take control of their health, to do, and I'm doing it myself. So it's a journey, right?
Yeah.
So how do you help people in terms of protocols and finding out the levels of issues that they've got, and then having the protocols? Because you've got the products, but then what's your follow-up? How do you, if I buy the stuff from you, how do I know how to use it properly for me?
Well, the product side is very simple, because that's just learning how to apply the products to get the most value out of them. When I'm talking about the information side, the actual protocols you do, they don't have a cost associated with them, because of what you do. I have done always free consults for people for all of these years on the ground whenever I'm here. Or if I was traveling in California, I would just give services for free. I would never charge, because I can't work in the States anyways. I would never go down there to make money. And so I could give it for free. I would say, no, I can't charge you, because I'm not a practitioner, and there's no way I can't do business down here like that. I have my own company that makes money down here. but I can't. So that gave it a really beautiful access, because then people, oh, well, I'd like to try this and this and this, because they weren't worrying about thousands of dollars of cost, because that's what, a lot of these practitioners do charge, $500 an hour or $200 an hour. And so these are protocols, first of all, that I would try on myself if I had something to deal with, which is like injury related, any kind of congestion in the system, because congestion is a really big problem. There's distortions in your body from just from your daily life, or how you started to walk and run. You have adhesions throughout your system. No, adhesions are anything where there's a sort of a tight bindy place that needs to be released. And so knowing how to redo the entire foundation of your physical structure, it was called structural conditioning, and being taught by people who would have 20, 30, 40 years of experience on the ground dealing with thousands of people. Then they would show me their top stuff, and then I would apply it and then help other people. So that's where the feedback loop came. Or if someone would call me on the phone, I'd say, hey, let's talk. Well, are you sure your time? No, this is super cool, right? Tell me everything you want. Like I'll share everything I possibly can with you, because that sharpens the whole sword. So your words are getting just like when you teach me something, you're going to be teaching yourself and learning even deeper, because you forgot that you knew so much stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it comes everything from dental to digestive system, immune system, respiratory, circulatory, endocrine. I mean, you name it, autonomic nervous system. All of those topics have super deep information, but you don't want to waste people's time. So how do you get quick, cut right to the chase, get to the point, get these things dealt with? Because there's only two levels in life. There's top level and then everything underneath. Basically. I didn't come up with that, by the way. That was a Bo Eason quote.
You can steal that.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, and learning like classical Chinese medicine. Classical Chinese medicine predates traditional. Traditional is very complex. You got to know acupuncture, you got to know herbs, you got to diagnose, you got to prognose. That's way too complicated. Classical Chinese medicine predates that whole thing, does not require doctors, diagnosis of any kind. It just completely fixes everything in your body post haste. But you have to be willing to do the treatments, and you got to do it to yourself. You can ask people to help you with some of them, but it's through stimulation of the skin. So when I first ran into it, I thought, this is the most radical thing I've ever seen, until I did it. And I found that it was the least radical thing I've ever done and the most effective, and it cost nothing. And I repaired all my previous injuries. Like we're talking about serious oil field injuries of my knees, shoulders, right? The things that happen, in life, vehicle accidents, whatever. And they all got repaired without any cost, other than my time and my energy. So those are the things I'm talking about information wise, and to get the people's heads around that. So you're talking at their level. You're not trying to kind of frying their minds. Because nobody ever fried my mind, right? I was ready to receive the information when I got it. So it was this stage protocol of me being allowed to hear the next thing.
Yeah.
And because as you advance and you're going up, so there's beginners, intermediate, and advanced. And I think everyone has to be respected where they're at. And so you're finding out where they're at. So you talk at that level so they can go to the next level. You're talking just a little bit above where they are, and then they go up. That way it's respectful. And otherwise, if I showed you the advanced stuff out of the gate, you're going, this dude is nuts, man. Like, what?
Running naked with goats up a hill with I can imagine. Look, I've taken up 48 minutes of your time, and I really appreciate it. I'm really glad that you've shared that story with us. It's very, very inspirational what you're doing. I think you're doing God's work, whatever that means anything to you or not. And I think anybody watching this, I think the real thing that I kind of got a feeling that you'd be telling people is really the same kind of thing, which is it's down to you. You've got to look after yourself, and we have all the answers within us, and we have guides and people that have plowed the way, like Ian here, which is amazing. And there is a link near here if you want to go and have a look at the Ian's videos and products and stuff like that. You don't have to, but it'd be great if you did. Thank you, Ian. I'm gonna write to you in about a month when I've been taking the stuff, just so I can tell you, because I'm at it every day, but I'm not perfect. I still found myself rushing a dinner together tonight, thinking this isn't the best thing I could have made. but you know, at least I had a good morning. You know, so it's kind of like that for me. But
and there's something interesting to share just before we go about respiratory. So I smoked cigarettes till I was 21, and it was just mainstream cigarettes in Canada, which are very strong. Yeah. And then I was fortunate that I went through this thing with my strep throat, and I was able to stop. A switch went off in my head because it was so painful from my strep throat that I actually got turned off the whole thing, because I found out to be the strongest addiction I'd ever had in my life by far. And then fast forward just to a few years ago, I ran into a friend of mine who I'd known for a while, but I didn't really understand everything he was doing. But I saw him vaping, and I'm like, he's vaping? That's different. I mean, why would he do that? Then I found out that he had this seaweed product that is actually healing to the lungs. He was using certified organic just pure nicotine. So there's pure nicotine and this seaweed. And so I'm like, okay, what's up with this? He goes, oh no, it would totally heal your lungs. Do you have any lung issues? I go, yeah. You know, I had lung issues for a bunch of reasons. And so he goes, well, you just try it out. So he told me, you don't go and get regular stuff. You had to spend $250 on this, what I would call a medical device. Had a stainless steel coil. It didn't off gas anything. It had to use this organic juice, no polyethylene glycol, nothing like that. This seaweed extract and this nicotine, and it was only 8 milligrams. And he said, you won't get addicted to it. You don't have to worry about that, but it will clear your lungs out. So I went, really? Like, this seems like a paradoxical kind of a thing, right? But I'll try it. So I went and I got all the stuff. And for 1 month, I vaped this liquid on an ongoing basis, like large volumes of it. And within 2 weeks, I started hacking up this clear kind of a glue. It wasn't dark or anything like that. It was just weird glue. And it would come up and it would get stuck in my vocal cords. So it'd be really raspy. And then that would all come out. And I kept doing that, like quite a bit of it. And after about a month of all that, it just stopped. It didn't do that anymore. And so I stopped doing that. I didn't bother with the protocol, but it felt like I had like a 30% extra capacity in my lungs. And it was quite a remarkable experience. And the stuff has been sitting around ever since. I got a whole bunch of it. I thought I was going to do it for a long time.
Send it to me.
I should. Yeah, you actually really enjoy that and he was using that for people who get away from conventional tobacco addictions, because the tobacco has so many chemicals in it.
Yeah.
If it's certified organic, is different. So you don't have the pesticides and things, which I know people who have that all the time, but this is different. This is something very unique. And then people were able to get away from that whole thing. And it turns out that nicotine is actually a very beneficial health product for the brain function, as well as helps to heal the lungs. It's like, what? Yeah. I couldn't even, but anyway, it did all this, it did what I wanted, and I haven't touched it since.
Well, if you want a guinea pig, I'll make videos every day. I'll do it. Because I've been on and off cigarettes for 20, 30 years. I'm currently on them, which I'm embarrassed to say it sometimes because, but this show's all about being as upfront as possible, and that's my own journey. Mm-hmm. But I know there's about 5 billion customers if you pull that together. That'd be a great thing to stop people smoking. But that's a whole other episode. I can't even start going down the smoking road. I'll be here for hours. But I have got another interview to do tonight, so I'm going to have to go.
You got to run, yeah.
Yeah, right. But well, listen, love to your family, and thank you so much for doing this chat, and thanks everybody for watching. Ian Clark, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Appreciate everything you're doing. We'll talk again soon.
Take care.
Take care.